Hello and welcome to the Mutual Fund Guide. It's all about your funds and your returns. I'm Muralidhar Swaminathan. Joining me on the show is Nikhil Kothari, Director and CFP, Etica Wealth Management. Nikhil, welcome to the show. Thanks once again. As always, you keep answering queries from fund investors. We get a large number of queries from different parts of the city. Let me go straight to the first caller. Chandan Kumar is on the line from Faridabad. Good afternoon, Chandan. What's your query?
Yeah, hi sir, Chandan here. So my query is that I am around 39 years old, and I have sort of started my a bit little late. I've started my financial planning, so I'm looking for a corpus of around 1 CR for next 20 years for my child's education, and 2 CR corpus I want to build for the retirement.
Right.
And I can invest up to around 30 to 50,000 a month. So that is my target, and I am pretty much a new investor, and so far I have only invested in the FDs. But recently I have just started my SIP with Access Focused 25 fund this month only, and that is for around 2,000 a month. Right. So I am pretty much probably a new investor from the stocks perspective and from the mutual funds perspective. So I need your advice on how I can build my portfolio to achieve this kind of a target. And I'm looking for at a moderate risk, and I don't want to go on a very high risk, or I don't want to be too much conservative on my profile.
Absolutely. I think, Chandan, your approach is absolutely right, and the timing is right. Are your children studying?
No, I have just, a 1-year-old kid.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, good time to start. Then you will be able to accumulate a lot of money for your child. Nikhil, over to you.
So first of all, Chandan, I'll say that it's a good thing that whenever you start planning investments, right, you should always keep a goal in mind, because this gives you discipline. Absolutely. And this gives you focus. So the good part is that you have identified your goals and you're planning to start for them. Now coming to the first goal, which is retirement. Okay, you may assume that that you want 2 to 3 crores of money by the time you are 60, but 2 to 3 crores is maybe required from today's perspective. But when you retire, the 2 to 3 crores will not be sufficient enough to make sure that you can comfortably retire. So what I'll say that try to write down your monthly expenses today, inflate that what will be the expense at that point of time, and try to identify the corpus for that. Just to give a ballpark number, that if you want 3 crores by the time you're 60, which is like 22 years of time frame, so you have a good time in your hand. So I'll say that in that time frame, you should invest in equity as an asset class, because equity as an asset class will give you far better return than all other traditional investments. And in the short term, it can be volatile, but in the long term, you average out your whole thing, and then you can make a healthy return on your portfolio. So to do a 3 crores corpus in next 22 years, you roughly need to do an SIP of 24,000 rupees per month, which can be easily done from your current investments. In terms of category of investment which you should look at, in this type of, when you have a horizon of 20-25 years, you can look at multi-cap as a category. In multi-cap, you get a mix of large cap as well as mid-cap stocks. So it gives you a well-diversified portfolio in your scheme of things. So you can look at Mirae Asset India Equity Fund, or you can look at Kotak Standard Multi-Cap Fund. If you want to have a slightly higher exposure to mid-cap, then you can add mid-cap funds in your portfolio also. But since you are saying you are conservative, then I'll rather stick to multi-cap fund and just hold on to this fund and keep on doing SIP. With regard to children's investments, since you're saying that your child is only 1 year of age, so you have 15 to 20 years of your time frame to plan for that for his or her education. So in that case, if you just do an SIP of 20,000 rupees every month, by the time in next 15 years, you will accumulate a 1 crore of corpus, which can easily fund child's education. Right. And in that for that goal, you can look at large and mid cap as a category, because that will have 35% large cap, 35% mid cap, and remaining 35% fund manager will take a call based on market conditions. So based on that, you can draw your whole
Absolutely.
profile.
Generally we think that the long-term cost of education is high. Actually, in India, you will find that the entry level cost is pretty high. He might face in the next 3 or 4 years, the entry level cost itself is going to be quite high. I think as far as education is concerned, not just in Chandan's case, in most people's case, I think it should be a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year kind of plan, I suppose.
Broadly, how you should plan from education is that as soon as a child is born, you have now expenses coming in terms of getting the school. That's the one expense.
3-4 years down the line.
Down the line. So you need to keep that corpus also. So what I'll say that Chandan should start small amount of saving in a debt fund fund also,
Right.
which can be used for entry-level education.
There should not be any risk in that.
In that, because you require this money next 2 to 3 years.
Correct.
Then you need to plan from the graduation perspective, which you already discussed. During this whole tenure, now the only thing is that you can manage from your cash flows. So if your income is coming in, you can set aside. Nowadays, most of the schools ask you lump sum money every 6 months.
Correct.
So what you can do is that from your current inflow perspective, you can do an SIP in liquid fund.
Right.
Say if the whole cost of education is 1,20,000 the whole year, you can do an SIP of 10,000 rupees every month in a liquid fund. So in 6 months you have 60,000 rupees, you can pay it at the school.
Pay the school,
again, next 6 months you again have that same thing. So from a cash flow, you should plan that 10,000 rupees should go to liquid fund for children's education, and obviously for long-term planning, you should do SIP in equity fund.
Absolutely. See, the cost of higher education, of course, will vary from where the student is going to study, whether it's in India or within India, whether it's medical or engineering, or if it is in universities abroad. I think that's a different situation, but you need to be prepared for that one. Chandan, all the best with your investment planning, all the best for your family. On that note, let's move to Chennai. Venkat Ramanan has mailed us this query. He is 46 and currently investing through SIP 10,000 rupees each in Axis Multi-Cap Fund, Franklin India Opportunities Fund, HDFC Hybrid Equity Fund, and ICICI Prudential Banking and PSU Debt Fund. He wants us to give your views on the portfolio that he has selected.
Right. So if I look at his selection, from a category selection is fine, because he has one multi-cap fund, one large and mid-cap fund, one debt fund, and one hybrid fund. But from a selection of fund perspective, now Axis Multi-Cap Fund is only a 1.5 year old fund. So I'll normally recommend, when you're investing in a fund, you should look at fund which has got a long track record, so that you can see how the fund manager has done over a different time frame. So in multi-cap fund, you can look at a Mirae Asset India Equity Fund or Kotak Multi-Cap Fund, which has got a long history as compared to the current fund. With regard to Franklin India Opportunity Fund, the fund has been not doing as great as compared to his peer group. So I'll rather recommend to switch in different large and mid-cap fund in the same category. So you can look at IDFC Korean Equity Fund, or you can look at Mirae Asset Emerging Blue Chip Fund. So in those categories, you can look at those type of fund. With regard to hybrid fund, HDFC Hybrid Fund is a very good fund, and you can continue to remain invested in that fund. With regard to ICICI Pro and PSU and debt fund, now it all depends on what exactly his time frame and what exactly he's looking at.
Absolutely.
If he's looking at to build a portfolio for next 3 to 4 years and in a debt category, then I'll rather recommend to be in a short-term fund with a slightly higher credit exposure, so because it gives him slightly better return than a fixed deposit. So in that case, he can look at Franklin India short-term fund as a investment option.
Right. Let's go to the next caller, Louis Kanakaraj. Louis, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. What's your query?
Yeah. So my query is, I'm investing a total of 1 lakh every month in the following 5 funds.
Right.
Motilal Oswal Most Focused Multi-Cap 35 Fund, 25,000. Mirae Asset India Equity Fund, 25,000. L&T Emerging Business Fund, 25,000. Mirae Asset Emerging Blue Chip Fund, 15,000. Principal Emerging Blue Chip, 10,000.
Right.
So these are the 5 funds that I'm investing, and my query is, can I expect a CAGR of 15%, if my investment horizon is 10 years?
Right.
And do I need to make any tweak to my choice of funds?
Okay. So 15% is the CAGR he's looking at. He's got a 10-year horizon. Nikhil, what's your opinion?
So how do you actually calculate your equity returns? So how do equity market gives you return? So you look at GDP growth of the country, so basically which is in the range of 7 to 8%.
Right.
Then you add inflation to that number, so which is say 5%. So roughly you end up making 12% return on your portfolio.
Correct.
I'm talking from a nominal growth perspective. And then you can add 1 or 2% alpha to the listed equity, which if company does earning higher than normal GDP, you can end up making 14 to 15% return on your portfolio.
Right.
So that's a reasonable expectation. That's perfect. But when I'm saying, when you're doing a planning, right, for your goals, you should take a conservative number and take a 12% as a return growth number. So the probability of achieving 15% is also very, very high. You can still achieve it because you have a good portfolio of large and mid-cap stocks in your portfolio. But I'll still recommend that from a planning perspective, take 12% as a conservative number. Whatever you get additional to that is a bonus part for you.
Absolutely.
Right. With regard to your funds, your portfolio is well diversified. You have 2 multi-cap funds, 2 large and mid-cap funds in your portfolio, and 1 small-cap fund in your portfolio. So from an overall perspective, it's good. But what I'll rather recommend to consolidate your portfolio. In a portfolio, you shouldn't have more than 4 to 5 funds in an overall portfolio. portfolio. So I'll rather recommend that instead of having two multi-cap fund, you can have one multi-cap fund. Instead of having two large and mid-cap fund, you can have one large and mid-cap fund and one small-cap fund. If you want to take a slightly higher exposure, then you can look at thematic funds like a pharma or infrastructure in your portfolio, but that should be a very small portion of your overall portfolio.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So, Louis, basically your portfolio selection is good. I think in 10 years, 12% should be reasonable. The room for disappointment when you set a target which is reasonable will be good. But I think at the 10th year, or not necessarily at the 10th year, even by 8th or 9th year, you should review and find out where you stand. That constant review is required once in 2 years or once in 3 years.
So a lot of people believe that when I'm investing for 10 years, I need to remain invested for 10 years. It doesn't mean that. So when you're nearing to your goal, you should always do your asset allocation. So today you have 10-year time frame, but after 7 years, you will only have 3-year time frame. So then you need to reallocate your portfolio. So you need to keep on moving. After end of 6th year, you start moving 20% of your portfolio from equity to debt.
Correct.
So by the end of your 9th year, you should be mostly in debt and less in equity.
Absolutely.
If the goal is very clear that you need this money in 10th year, if the goal is that you may extend to 10 to 15 year, then you can remain invested in equities.
Yeah, and you see the requirement for money, today you have set a certain objective, 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, the requirement for money might change completely. It could be positive, it could be not so positive depending on how your salary and income grows and how your expenditure grows. So reasonably it's possible to budget, but then there are expenses which keep coming up. On that note, let me go to the next query. Raman Roy from Kolkata has mailed us this question. It's a two-part one. He is 68 years old and he has invested 6 lakhs in ABSL medium term plan. The value and return has come down to 5%. Should he shift to ABSL frontline equity fund or any other balance fund which can give him a return of FD plus 4%? He is looking at 9% on an average, I think. His second query is he wants to invest 10 lakhs in Tata retirement saving fund through SIP.
Okay, so coming to the first query, you are comparing an apple to an orange, because Birla Medium Term Fund is a debt fund, and Birla Frontline Equity Fund is a pure equity fund. So you cannot compare both this fund. Now, considering why the returns come down to 4 or 5% last 1 year, last 1 year has not been that great for debt market. So interest rate has been on the rising straight, and because of that and tight liquidity, the debt fund return has been lower than what the expectation was there. So, but if you still have a 3-year time frame, and saying medium term fund should give you 1 or 2% higher than your FD return on a post-tax basis. Now, if you have a expectation of 4% on a normal growth as compared to FD, then you can invest in a balance fund, which is a mix of debt and equity. Now, moving from pure debt fund to equity fund, pure 100% equity fund is not advisable. I'll say that if you have a risk appetite, then you can move from Birla Medium Term Fund to a hybrid fund, which is balanced fund, and continue to invest in that. And you should have a minimum horizon of 5 to 7 years. With regard to Tata Retirement Fund, the fund is good. You can continue SIP in that fund.
Right. The Tata Retirement Fund is good. You can continue to invest and avoid switching suddenly and from debt fund to the equity fund. Do we have time for one more query? I think we have time for one more query. Let's take the next query. I think this is a call from Manish Arora, who is on the line from Delhi. Good afternoon, Manish. What's your query?
Yeah, hi everybody. So I have two queries actually. One which is regarding, I have one mutual fund, Reliance Tax Saver Fund, Growth 5000, where I am investing. I want to know about it. Like, shall I continue with it or shall I quit it? Because I am not getting returns according to my expectation as of now.
Yeah, but when did you start investing in this fund?
I started investing 11 months before.
11 months before.
I want to know, shall I continue it for next 10 years, 3 years, or shall I quit it after a specific time? And another query, I want to invest 10,000 rupees more, 5,000 in tax saving and 5,000 in regular equity mutual funds.
Right.
So I want two mutual funds for suggestion. Right?
Okay, coming to your first query, first you are investing in tax saving fund, and tax saving fund will have an exit, you cannot redeem before 3 years, you have a lock-in for 3 years. Now coming to selection of the fund, Reliance Tax Saver Fund is a small cap biased fund. So, and you have not seen very good result because in last 11 months, primarily last 6 months, small cap or mid cap has been hammered like as compared to large cap. So that's why you're seeing huge difference in the return expectation of other ELSs compared to Reliance ELSs. I'm saying the fund is good if you have a horizon of at least 10 years, because when you're investing in small and mid cap, you need to have minimum horizon of 10 years. But if you are not very aggressive investor and want to be a slightly moderate investor, I'd rather recommend to move to DSP tax saver fund. With regard to other fund, you can look at multi-cap fund, you can look at Mirae Asset India Equity Fund or Kotak multi-cap fund to remain invested for other than ELSs.
Right. I think the priorities are very clear. I think we have run out of time. We won't be able to take more questions, but we'll keep coming back every day during the week and take all your queries. Nikhil, thanks so much for joining us. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Mutual Fund Guide. Stay tuned to BTVI for more news and updates coming up on the other side of the break.